Then Lloyd and Javier arrived at one of the largest lakes near the Frontera estate. Lloyd said that the lake, called Laku Capua, would be a perfect place to build the truth jewel since it is wide and has deep water levels too. Lloyd called one of his Pakmon. It was Bibiong, the owner of Lake Capua. Lloyd asked him what he thought about the plan and if they could build the truth jewel there. After Bibiong gave his permission, Lloyd was happy that everything was agreed upon. He said it was great and that he would start scanning the whole place. He began taking off his coat and other clothes. Then he held his breath as he dove into the lake. While scanning, Lloyd was able to locate an area for construction. He thought it was a great place because there was some flat ground with a lot of space that looked sturdy. Lloyd started using his simulation mode to see the structure. He had heard in the past that the truth jewel releases a lot of powerful energy to answer questions. Lloyd planned to check just how strong that power was. As he used the simulation mode, the structure of the truth jewel started to change, but he was stopped and became confused as he saw something unexpected in the simulation. A large, typhoon-like formation began to appear above the truth jewel. Lloyd realized the force was more powerful than he had anticipated. The whole lake began to form a strong current, turning into a large whirlpool. Then, after forming the whirlpool, the lake exploded. This alarmed Lloyd and shocked him. The water in the lake started gushing out, creating large waves that even surpassed the height of the mountains. The strong flow of water gushed through the estate, washing away all the houses and buildings, causing massive destruction. Lloyd thought this was another problem, as it would cause loss of life and destroy the place he built. Meanwhile, Javier was playing with Lloyd's pets that he left behind while scanning the lake. As Lloyd slowly rose from the water, Javier's attention was caught. He looked at Lloyd and saw that Lloyd's face appeared troubled. The usual devilish smile was absent, replaced with a worried expression. Javier handed him a towel and asked if there was a problem, seeing his master's face like that. Lloyd shouted angrily, startling Javier for a moment. Lloyd complained, asking when on earth he would finally get to retire and enjoy his life, all while wiping water off his body from diving. Annoyed, Lloyd told Javier he could go on vacation soon because he had a lot of things to think over. Lloyd put on his coat and started moving forward. Seeing his workaholic master, Javier could only sigh, not understanding what the problem was. Javier thought to himself that he couldn't help with anything other than fighting. Since he was told to take a rest, Javier began strolling around the estate. As he looked around, he noticed that the buildings were different. He thought the place had changed a lot because, just a few years ago, it was only a poor village with nothing. Then, he heard something, a child calling his father, which caught his attention. It was the children of Byron, a former knight of the estate who was now doing administrative tasks. The children were happy to see their father after a long time. Javier remembered hearing that Byron's children, who were studying in the capital, were receiving a good education without lacking anything. Then, Javier looked behind him and saw an orc and elf together. They were playing the harp happily. Javier thought that although orcs and elves had opposing personalities, they got along well in Frontera. On the other hand, another orc was talking to a human, catching Javier's attention. The orc was Kuga, and he was apologizing to the girl he loved, Miss Emily, because the slow girl had changed because of him. Miss Emily, flexing her muscles and smiling, said there was no need for an apology because she really enjoyed her training dates with Kuga. She added that with stronger wrists, she could flip a large blanket with one move. Kuga was touched by what Emily said. Emily then started running, pulling some weights, asking Kuga to try and catch her. Kuga, carrying larger weights, happily chased Emily, saying she was cheating. Javier's face turned into a poker face, unsure of what to make of what he had just witnessed, but he smiled and accepted it. He thought that the sight was a little unfamiliar and that he would need some time to judge it, but to Javier, muscles were a good thing. Meanwhile, two of Lloyd Frontera's fanatics were flexing something else. They announced that a super large statue had been completed. It was a muscular and Sigma statue of Lloyd Frontera. Elsewhere, the poop-annihilating dragon was happily raising the creation he made. He proudly declared that he finally did it, a dragon statue that he had completed. His master, a dwarf named Wells, said there was no chance it was a dragon. He thought the dragon had made a slime instead. Greg constructed missiles where his wife was sitting. For Javier, dreams were slowly being fulfilled in the estate. Seeing the elves enjoying food, he realized that the problems related to hunger had also been resolved, and the people in the estate were satisfied with life. For Javier, all these people were enjoying their lives in such a bright place. If you look into it, the two kids that passed Javier were both resemblance of Lloyd and Javier. But his eyes began to sadden as he thought about his master. He began to wonder when Lloyd would be able to return. Lloyd's mother and father started talking to each other. Lloyd's mother told her husband that she was worried about Lloyd because, after such a long time, he was finally back, but he had been stuck in the study room. Lloyd's father agreed because they hadn't even been able to hold a proper welcome party for him. Lloyd's mother added that she hadn't even gotten the chance to ask Lloyd what he is so busy with because he looks so serious. His husband replied, saying he also had a hard time because he found it difficult to bring up that question. Lloyd's father said that Lloyd was used to being a bum, but not only has he pulled himself together, right now he is trying to revive the territory like a hero. Count Frontera said that sometimes he felt different, but without letting the Count finish his sentence, his wife said that sometimes she feels like Lloyd is a different person. Count Frontera was silent, looking at his wife. He asked her if she felt that too. The Countess replied that Lloyd doesn't even call them mother and father. The way he speaks, acts, and the expressions he has, they have also changed since that day. The Count started to stand up. He said that he guessed that is why there is a saying, pull yourself together, and that only means that Lloyd has grown up as a person. He opened the drawer, and this also caught the attention of his wife. The Count said that he was thinking it is time to give Lloyd that item to give him a change of pace. It was actually a set of clothing. The Countess said that it is the formal clothes of the Frontera household. The Count said that the clothes are supposed to be passed down when one becomes the local lord, but he believes that Lloyd is way more than qualified for that. The Count smiled, saying that Lloyd made a big fuss over getting these formal clothes in the past, so he was sure that Lloyd would be happy. On the other hand, Lloyd was walking fast past the hallway like he was in a rush. His face looked like he hadn't been able to sleep for days. He was fixing his coat, thinking that he was a genius. He planned to build a downstream section of the Prona River. He was going to build a gravity dam to block the flood. He was in such a hurry to go and perform the simulation now. His mother and father were actually waiting for him in the hallway. His father, who was carrying the clothes, said that they were looking for him. His mother said that it seemed Lloyd was so busy, so they planned to get straight to the point. She said that they have a present for him. Lloyd was confused, asking what present it was. His father smiled and showed him the clothes of the Frontera family, saying that it was the gift for him. Lloyd looked confused and didn't know what to say about it, but instead, he just smiled, saying that he was amazed and that they looked so good. He said that he would make sure to use them. Before leaving, he looked back and said that he thanked them so much and he was so busy right now, so he planned to try the clothes on later. Before Lloyd left, his father called him and asked if he remembered what he said before the time when he said that he wanted it because he thought his grandfather would look cool in it. Lloyd continued to leave, but he smiled and told his father that he was right and that he was amazed that he still remembered that, and he thanked his father for that. Then Lloyd totally left the area. His parents just looked at him while he walked away. They were just silently standing there. Then his father said that Lloyd, he is the person who has never met his grandfather before. With this, Kim Suho is now doomed, as Lloyd's father has confirmed his doubt that he is an imposter. Then the Count and his wife did some gardening, like they usually do. As Javier passed by, the Count greeted him. Javier greeted the Count and Countess with a good morning. The Count slowly started to stand up to talk to Javier. The Countess asked Javier if he was enjoying his vacation. Javier didn't know how to reply. He looked sad. He told the Count and the Countess that now that he wasn't doing anything, he felt a little uneasy. The Count asked him what he was talking about. The Count told Javier that he must have had such a hard time going through everything he had gone through so far. The Count told him that both he and Lloyd had been so busy traveling that they didn't even rest. The Count said that he was really curious about that and asked Javier if he could tell him about their travels. Javier said that it was a little hard for him to tell the Count all the details right now. Javier assured him that he would tell him everything once things were settled somehow. The Count and the Countess didn't look good at this time. The Count said that he understood Javier, but he asked him to just tell him one thing then. He asked Javier if he knew how Lloyd was right now. Javier replied that Lloyd was at the Prona River right now, but Javier's eyes started to get serious as he looked at the Count and Countess. The Count asked him that was not what he meant by that question. He asked about the real Lloyd, their son. He asked Javier if he was still alive. Javier was shocked to hear that. He didn't know what to say. He started sweating, and his eyes widened after that question. With this, there are two possible things that will happen. Lloyd will act and become the best Oscar actor to make the Count and Countess believe in him, or Javier will remain silent and not tell them about Kim Suho. Or if there is something that will happen beyond our expectation,